Alright, hey everybody, Car Cafe here. Back in talking about more set 12. This time we're here with the big man himself, the winner of the set, Bastion Accord. You know, I gotta say, I picked up Bastion stuff back around set 8, set 9 with the thought of like, I believe there will be a new Bastion, and it'll be a long-term investment maybe, but there will be a new Bastion that'll come out and revitalize this deck. And what do you know? That's exactly what happened with our boy Bastion Accord and all his FFR goodness. It's funny, I'm not even like the biggest Keter Sanctuary fan as a whole, but I just keep seeming to get the FFRs out of the case, which I'm not going to complain about because, you know, this is a pretty sweet one to get. But yeah, so let's break it down. But first, actually, we do need to address the owl-sized elephant in the room, which is the missing promo. So we at least got confirmation that the owl promo is coming, and it is going to be a box topper in set 13, thank God. I was really worried that was going to be another $60 to $100 Keter Sanctuary promo, and I didn't want to have to go through that again. So that would be a much easier pickup, but set 13 is not out, and it's not going to be out for about 2 months. So we got to make do without it. And I have to say, I originally thought it wouldn't be that big of a difference deck build wise, but having gone through it, looked at the options, play tested around somewhat, it kind of is. This deck is actually pretty different from how I would build this if the owl was out. So I gotta put that out there and get that out of the way. There's no owl yet. To the point I probably am gonna do a whole different deck profile once the owl is out in set 13. But for now, we're gonna make do without it. And this deck, you know, still packs a pretty good punch without the owl, just not quite as crazy. But let's start, as we always do, with our ride line here. One of the OG ride lines of the Overdress series, a pretty straightforward one. You got your starter, go in second, on ride dry a card, nothing special. Grade 1, the axe skill doesn't matter. The ride skill, when he's rode upon by this boy over here, you got to reveal 2 grade 3s from your hand. If you do, you get to call the top card of your deck to the board. Now, I'm sure my fellow Bastion players out there are very familiar with the checking the top card of your deck and calling a trigger. 90% of the time, it's going to be a trigger. You just accept it. Just live for those occasional high moments where you get an actual unit that you can use an attack with. Most of the time, it's going to be a trigger and just a booster for your Vanguard. But, hey, unit to the board is a unit to the board. Grade 2, kind of similar. When he's rode upon, you get to reveal 3 grade 3s from your hand. And if you do, you draw a card. Straightforward stuff. But we all know what those 3 do. They're not what we're here for. We're here for the new boy, the new hotness, or girl, honestly. See, I know this is a debate. I don't know, you look at that art, I've always kind of been on the train, the Bastion secretly a girl, and I think this just kind of reaffirmed it for me. But either way, Bastion Accord, really good card. Solid upgrade. Got 3 things going on. First, very simple, counts as Apex Ruler Bastion, which is important since technically you have to ride over Apex with Apex Ruler. So it counts as Apex Ruler. If you're running Apex Ruler, the original Bastion in the deck, you can Persona ride on top of it with this and vice versa. So that's cool. But what's really cool is the next skill, which is a very crucial skill, which is your grade 3 or greater rear guards in the front row have a continuous 5,000 power on both yours and your opponent's turn. But more importantly, they cannot be targeted by your opponent's effects. Huge skill, especially where you still have, again, Diva running around. You've got any Dark Stage decks that wants to run Clean Sweep Dragon. You've got still got like Binding shenanigans going on with Messiah. Like there's just so many decks that target, and it's really annoying. And you just say, no, my front row grade 3s can't be targeted, thanks. And they also have 5,000 power on your turn, so have fun with that. But then to top it all off, icing on the cake, if that skill wasn't good enough, he got a third skill, which is at the end of the battle that he attacked, you can restand one of your rear guards, and if your opponent's at grade 3 or greater, counterblast 1. That unit performs drive checks on its next attack. Such a good skill. That's why you're gonna stick to your grade 3s for the most part, because you want that twin drive, because they're the ones with twin drive, and if you use that skill on a grade 3, you'll get twin drive again. Oh, you do have to discard a card with Bastion in its name for the twin drive, not for the restand, which is cool. The restand is just, you just get it now. At the old Bastion, you had to check a grade 3. Not anymore. Another great upgrade, quality of life change. You just get the restanding regardless of what you check. It also doesn't cost a counterblast. The drive check does. So discard a Bastion, counterblast 1. Your opponent's at grade 3. You get drive checks on the rear guard. So, very good skill, very consistent card, and just a powerhouse. Because even if you don't have the drive checks, you're going first against your opponent. You're already getting at least a 5k buff to your rear guards, and you're getting a guaranteed 4 attack, because they can't do anything about that other one restanding and attacking again. There's no way to stop that. There's no damage denying anything. It's just free restand attack again. So just really solid pressure, really good card. It got great defense to protect the front, and then also just applies so much pressure to your opponent. Now, even though we're not restricted to grade 3s for our skills as much, we're still running 90% grade 3s, because those are just all the good support the Bastion has. So we're kind of breaking into different sections here. Firstly, should be no surprise, we are running max copies of Accord as the Persona Ride backups. I don't think I need to really explain why that's important, especially also then with the third skill requiring you to discard a card with Bastion in its name in order to get the twin drive on your grade 3 rear guards. Yeah, you really don't want to be discarding this though for that skill, because you want a Persona Ride. So because of that, we are running max copies of Bastion Prime, the grade 4. For anyone who doesn't remember what this card does, he gives your grade 3 rear guards 2k in the front row, and then he has triple drive, and if you drive check a grade 3 when he attacks, you can remove a Bastion from your soul or hand to the drop zone and just restand all of the grade 3s. They all get 10,000 power. So, most of the time, this is just discard fodder for Bastion Accord skill. But, if your opponent's at 5 damage, this is arguably a better finisher, because you're getting 5 attacks, and all of the grade 3s are getting powered up. So, occasionally, you might still end up going into this card, which is why I run it at 4. I know some people run it at less. I run it at 4 for that possibility, but mainly also just to make sure I have the discard target for Bastion Accord, and I don't have to waste a Persona Ride for that skill. So, 4 copies. I'm not running Apex Ruler, to get that out of the way right now. It is also why I'm running 4 copies of Prime. Apex Ruler just feels like just such a downgrade to Accord and Prime that if I had to be in a position where I had to ride Apex and with no other option, that just feels really bad. So I'm not running Apex Ruler. I know some people do, but I'm not a fan. I just prefer 4 Prime. Moving on to the actual grade 3s that we're playing on the rear guard, though, we have the other new card. Grandeur Edge Dragons. Simple but very strong card. It came alongside Bastion Accord. So what this guy says is, you got 2 skills. The first is that when a grade 3 card would be revealed from hand for the cost of your Vanguard, this can be regarded as 2 grade 3s. So cool for the beginning of the game, where you've got your ride line requiring you to reveal 2 and then 3 grade 3s. So you're giving a lot of your hand away to your opponent. This actually just counts as 2. So for that first one, you can just reveal this, and that counts for the skill. And then for the second one, you just reveal this and one other thing. So it just cuts down in how much information you're giving to your opponent. So that's nice. But really, the main thing about this card that's really strong is the second skill, which is just if you have a Bastion Vanguard, this is gets an extra 10,000 power and 10,000 shield. So it's a pretty big beater. It's 28 by itself between him and Bastion Accord's skill, and that's also a 10k shield, which is really nice in a deck where we don't have a whole lot of shield value in our normal units because a lot of them are grade 3s. So of that 28k beater, 10k shield, helps you not reveal many of your hands, definitely a 4 of, and going to be a 4 of going forward. Now, the only other 4 of I'm running currently in this build without the Owl in the grade 3 lineup is Rendalia. So this card was from back in set 9, I believe. Is a pretty cool card. It's got 2 skills. The first is if you have a Bastion Vanguard, you can put her into the soul from rear guard, and she gives all of your other grade 3s boost. So that's good. You got some stuff in the back row, including this guy, because this card just continues, doesn't have to be in the front row. He'll just get the 10,000 power. So I like to use him as a booster sometimes. And just make your lines really incredibly big. Even on your first grade 3 turn, if you've got grade 3 boosters with Bastion's skill, even without any other power, you're swinging for 31 on a 10k. Like, that's crazy. So we like that just to go in the soul, give everything boost. But then a second skill is in the soul, you can Soul Blaster out, target a unit, and it gets boost. So if you don't have another one of these set up, but you have them in the soul, you can just blast them out to continually keep up the boost pressure, basically. So that's why we run 4s. We want to just make sure we can keep up that boost pressure as much as we can. And I prefer her over Darkstrain. I know a lot of people run Darkstrain instead, but I prefer her just because she's not Soul Blast 2. And instead it actually gives you soul. So 4 copies of her. And then next, we're kind of going into our, and without the Owl, we're going into our tech slots. I really like Decisively Heaven Axe Dalibri. So I'm actually surprised I don't see a lot of people running this. I'm running this at 2 for right now. So what this guy says is that when his attack or the attack he boosts hits a Vanguard, you check top 7, add a Bastion to your hand, shuffle the rest. If he boosted, you retire him, which is almost never gonna be what you do, because I always put this in the front. So there's a really good card for guaranteeing that you have a Bastion in your hand, ideally prime, for the discard, or also just searching for Persona Rides for Accord. So that's why I like him, because if you're in a deck where you're relying on a copy of Bastion for your skills on top of being able to Persona Ride, this just helps thin your deck for them and get them into your hand. Yes, it's an on hit, but as I mentioned, if he's in your front row, Bastion's giving him 5k, so he's already 18. I like throwing this grade 3 dragon behind him with Rendalia's effect live, because then this line is insane on turn 3. This line is like, it's 26, 31, this is 41 on your opponent's 10k. Good luck guarding that. So that's just the fun combo I like doing. And then just guarantees that you have Bastions, which is nice. So I like 2 copies of him. Will he stick around post Owl? That's a really good question. Next, I'm running the Festival Collection grade 2 at 2 copies. Siegis. This is also another really good card, especially for Keter Sanctuary and Bastion in particular. It's got a few different things going on. The first is when your opponent would reveal a trigger on either the drive check or the damage check, this gets 10,000 power and 10,000 shield continuously. It doesn't stack, so if they hit multiple, he only gets the power up once. But it is nice to be able to continue to hit over a defensive trigger, or if your opponent it checks triggers, this then becomes a 10k shield. So it's another 10k shield in your deck that normally doesn't have shield. So I like that skill a lot. Second skill, which honestly doesn't come up a whole lot, but does sometimes, is on attack, you can look at the top card of your deck if you have a standing Vanguard and put it on top of your deck or into Soul. But then after that, you can counterblast 1 and perform all of the following abilities. The first is choose one of your opponent's 14,000 or greater Vanguards, and this unit gains all of the power of that Vanguard. It's another good instance of if your opponent hit a trigger and like gave it to their Vanguard, you just choose their Vanguard, this gets all the power of that Vanguard, which can be pretty cool. And then the second option that you can choose is remove the over trigger from the game, and you get to give a different unit 15,000 power. So just a cool counterblast 1, either give this a power up or power something else up, depending on the situation and depending if you have the over trigger in your drop zone. But really, it's the first skill that we like a lot. It's just the free 10k if your opponent hits an offensive or defensive trigger. 2 copies of that. And then the shocker, I'm sure to some people, only 2 copies of the OG boy Alden. So this is a direct consequence of no Owl. If we had Owl, this would be at 4, because the Owl countercharges. But we don't have Owl, so we don't have any countercharge. So we are only running Alden at 2 for right now. For those who don't know, Alden says when he's placed on rearguard, counterblast 2, Soul Blast 1, call a grade 3 from your hand to the board, draw 2. Really good card. Strong for just gaining the advantage of drawing 2 cards. He also then gets 5,000 power every time he attacks, so that's not once per turn. If you restand him with Bastion, he'll get 5,000 twice. But counterblast 2 for that first go. We have no countercharge in this deck. You're not going to be able to activate that skill a lot, especially where we need to save counterblast for Bastion Accord's ability to give Twin Drive to a rearguard. So you just really can't afford this skill more than once. You get the skill off once and that's it, if you're lucky. So 2 copies. Once we have some countercharge in the form of the Owl, this is going back up. But right now, just 2 copies. And lastly, we're playing the Regalius piece, Formidable Doll. The really good Regalius piece that I feel like was made basically with Bastion in mind. Because this says, when you play it, you can search your deck for up to either 2 grade 3s or grade 4s. Put the grade 4 into your hand, the grade 3s go to rearguard. So you need to search for 2 grade 3s and just call them straight to the board. Or what you're almost certainly going to do in this deck, because you need the Bastions, you're going to search for a Bastion Prime, put the Bastion Prime in your hand, and then just call a grade 3 that you're missing to the board. Usually Rendalia if you need the boost, or just one of the better offensive options. But really, you're going to be searching for Prime, just guaranteeing that you have one set up. So really just a good card for consistency's sake. Now, we are actually running a couple other tech options that are not grade 3s that'll probably change in some capacity again when the Owl's out, but I think I might keep some of them because they've been working pretty well in testing. The first is Wello, Knight of Heavily Signs Wello. So this card is kind of interesting. And so far has been working out great for me. This card has actually saved my ass a couple times. What she says is when she's placed on the Guardian Circle, if you have a Vanguard with Bastion in its name, you can choose any number of your grade 3 rear guards and move them onto the Guardian Circle, and they all get 5,000 shield. Now this is really crucial because of this guy. And honestly, potentially, this guy. If you have these on the board because you're using them either boosters or attackers, you can throw her down onto the Guardian Circle and move these onto the Guardian Circle with her, and they'll gain 5,000 shield on top of the shield they're already getting on the Guardian Circle. Because remember, this just is a 10k shield. This potentially gets 10k shield if your opponent hit a trigger. So these just become 15k shields that you just moved onto the board from the Guardians, moved onto the Guardian Circle from the board. So you end up actually just milling a massive amount of shield. Depending on what your board looks like, you're almost always going to have at least one of these on the board. So she can kind of just come in clutch where your opponent thinks that they've got you cornered, but then you just throw her down and be like, nope, sorry, I have 30 to 40k shield. Have fun. So I've actually liked her a lot. Like I said, she's actually saved me a couple of times. And just come in clutch more than that too. So I like 2 copies of her. I don't know she would be the first obvious choice to take out, but I don't know. She's working out well. We'll see. And then the next one is the little cutie, the golden kitty cat, the Topaz, the generic for set 12. Arguably the best of the kitty cat generics for set 12, because this one says when you put 2 cards from your ride line back into the ride deck face up, you can either, if it was placed on rear guard, check top 3, call to the board, or gets 15,000 shield if placed on guardian circle. So pretty good card. Just a free plus to the board for the top 3 to the call, which is the main thing you're gonna do. Just again help you look for those grade 3s that you're missing, or also just an emergency 20k shield. Honestly, I've used it for both, and that's why I run 2. Just because whether we are in a situation where you will have the 4 options, these won't get removed by anything else, so you can use this skill theoretically twice. And honestly, I've had games where I've used both. I've had a game more than once, I think, where I've both used it as a 20k shield and used it to top 3 call to the board. So really good card. I do not think this is coming out, but again, we'll see. Really like it so far. And finally, rounding out the regular stuff. Same old, same old. We've been here quite a few times already. This isn't going to change, I think, ever. Unless you're playing a grade 4 deck. So, which, granted, yes, I am aware that Bastion Prime is in here, but you're almost certainly never riding Bastion Prime. So we're sticking with 1 Sanctitude. Nation Perfect Guards. If you have 1 or less cards in your hand, you don't have to discard. For the Perfect Guard effect, Sanctitude, if they have triple drive, you don't have to discard for the PG effect. And also, if they have some sort of guard restrict from hand, this gets around it because it goes to the Order Zone. All good there. Trigger lineup. Not anything super crazy going on here. I'm just doing a pretty classic 7 critical triggers. I'm just running Blade Feather because I have it. If you want to just run more generics, again, Soul's not really an issue in this build, so Blade Feather's not doing a whole lot in that respect. So if you want to just run more generics, that's totally fine. But 7 crits, because crits are crits, and you can't argue with what that effect says. And then I am actually doing 4 draw triggers, again, probably because of the owl. If we had the owl, this would probably be different. But I kind of just like the extra assurance with the draws, where we're running less Aldens. We don't have a whole lot of draw power. Yes, Bastion is giving you Twin Drive, but you have to discard a card. So it's good, but not fantastic. So I like having just a little extra draw. If you want to run fronts, that's certainly not a bad call. I'd probably switch to fronts again later down the road. I might even with this build to try it out, but so far I'm liking and kind of prefer just 4 draw triggers. But we'll see. Heals, we're doing 2 of the crits and 2 generics. Again, this kind of just fluctuates. You can do really whatever you want here. I still like the 2 crits because you just got a lot of things floating around with crits, and just crits are scary, so I like having the extra shield value for those, but I always prefer having 2 generics just for 15k shield regardless of what the situation is. Now the big question, what OT are we running? I am running Mr. Blue OT. So, why are we running the blue? This is the one Keter Sanctuary deck with a lot of grade 3s. Why aren't we running the Keter Sanctuary over trigger that gives rear guards drive checks? So that's originally what I was going to do. I was actually going to run the Keter Sanctuary one in here. But as I was thinking about it, as I was playing the deck more, it kind of clicked in my head, probably slower than it should have, that Bastion Accord is giving one of your rear guards Twin Drive already. So the Keter Sanctuary OT, all it's doing is giving one rear guard Twin Drive, which is something, but feels less impactful than the blue over trigger, or even the red one, quite frankly, where this says, if you check this offensively, it's a critical trigger, and also puts a card back into my hand from the drop zone, which is critical, again, in a deck like this, where I am reliant on having copies of Bastion in my hand for discard. So that'd be the main thing you're looking for, is just grabbing an extra copy of Prime, usually, put it back into my hand to discard it again for Bastion Accord's skill. And also for being an 8th critical trigger in this deck. That just feels a lot more impactful and stronger to me than one other rear guard having Twin Drive when my other one already had it. So the Keter OT is not doing anything for the rear guard that Bastion targeted with its effect. So I like the blue for that, just for getting stuff back for the drop zone, really. Red one's good too if you have that, just for the restanding. Getting another restanding rear guard attack in this deck is certainly strong. If that's the one that you have, certainly no problem with that. I would run the red OT over Keter, honestly. But if you have the blue, I'd recommend the blue. And yeah, that's the deck profile as it stands right now. Like I said, this is going to change probably a lot when the Owl comes out. And we'll probably do a revamp of this for the channel when that happens. But for right now, I think this feels pretty good. There might be a couple things I tweak, but I'm liking this build so far. It's working out pretty well. Wello is kind of the standout that I was not expecting to work as well or be as good as I was thinking it was going to be. I'm really liking Dalibri personally. I recommend trying it if you haven't. I know a lot of people aren't, and so you might not be thinking about it, but I recommend giving this a try. It's putting in some pretty good work for me. Like I said, because it's just being ridiculously high numbers if it's boosted, being like 31, 41 when your opponent's on grade 2, even if they're at grade 3. That's not easy to guard. So I'm liking him a lot. He's putting in work, and the deck is just, it's fun. The deck has gotten a lot better. It's not quite as boring, for lack of a better term, as it was before. You've got some really cool pieces. There's a lot of different things that you can run. And I think, it's just a lot of fun to rock around. And it's also pretty straightforward. It's a weird combination of it's straightforward, but it's not boring anymore, at least to me. And it's still like pretty fun to play with and kind of experiment with for right now. So not as much of a powerhouse as it would be in the meta without the Owl, but it's still a pretty good deck. Accord is a very strong card, and the Owl's coming. He'll be here soon, just in set 13 meta where things are going to get crazy. But I think, even looking at Japan, it looks like Bastion can still hold its own with the Owl in set 13. But that's a topic for a different day. We'll get to set 13. But for the meantime, ask any questions that you have down in the comments, and you'll see us soon.